Ukraine, a few words on organization of the process. Our discussion is for an hour and a half. This is the discussion which will be moderated by Elena Minich. We have two important technical things. Please remember that when someone speaks, one microphone should be on, only one microphone. When you finish speaking, turn it off. And please speak slower, because we have the simultaneous translation, and there's online stream in English and in Ukrainian. And because the topic is not so easy, it would be important to really relay the whole context. The mic. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. First question, how has our operators spent the night with new frequencies? Probably everyone's happy, but they haven't paid yet. Can you hear? As they say, it's better to have an awful end than awful things endless. The process of 3G auction finished, but formally the regulator has 5 days to issue us papers, and then we have some time to pay for that. But the most important thing has happened, because the country will get so much money in such difficult time in history, and finally 3G will come to the country. I believe we had to celebrate that, and yesterday I was celebrating. Maybe you cannot see it looking at me, but believe me, thank you for this wonderful beginning. And first I would like to introduce the participants of the round table. We have Dmytro Shymkiv, the deputy head of the presidential administration. Petro Chernyshov has opened our round table by his wonderful start, the president of Kyivstar company. Mr. Erdal Yayla, chief executive officer of Astelit Life. Also, Ivan Zlochevskyi has to be here. He will join us in 40 minutes, but now we would like to welcome Illya Keningstein, the Director on Corporate Rights of MTS-Ukraine, and he's a very experienced person in telecommunications. Jaanika Merilo, the advisor to the Minister of Economic Development and Trade of Ukraine. Illya Keningstein, the managing partner of Hybrid Capital Venture Fund. Oleksandr Fedienko, member of the board at Internet Association of Ukraine, and myself, Elena Minich, expert of the 3G working group, and also the advisor to the minister. The topic of the round table, it was announced differently, but I would like to expand our discussion. It will be not just about 3G, but about digital agenda for Ukraine. What does it mean? What does it mean for everyone? A wonderful map, but you see the white spots there, and after we issue 3G licenses, so after we will issue them, these light blue spots, these are the countries where there's no national strategy of development of telecom, IT, and information society. That is ITU map, the map that registers or shows how each one of the states is planning and strategy for the development. Is the national broadband plan. Ukraine is still in the white part, like some African and Latin American countries. And this is the map of technologies. Please look attentively. Till yesterday, till 22nd of February, we were still in 2000 talking about the development of technologies. The map is very simple. Vertical is mobility, the horizontal is the speed of data transfer, till we don't have 3G. We were between even 1995 and 2000. Yesterday's event moved us forward, and as soon as the operators will start 3G networks, we will potentially come close to 2015. But it depends on what operators start. If they start HSDPA, which will give 42 megabit per second, then will be somewhere in 2010. If they start only with HSDPA, which is much smaller, this will not bring us closer to realities. And now let's look at what our colleagues in Europe are planning. We, as a country that signed the association agreement with the EU, sooner or later, we will have to reply to all the demands and requirements of the digital development. There is such a thing as digital agenda. Digital agenda includes 7 pillars, which are directed towards development of IT, ITC, and telecommunications. And the main task of this agenda is development of the economy of the country. Reboot the EU economy, which means to give a new impetus for the development of the economy, to enable Europe's citizens and businesses to get the most out of the digital technologies. I selected 5 key tasks which show perfectly well the objectives of Europe from the point of view of digital agenda. The task 2020 in Europe, all the population should be covered, and so that wide range access up to 30 megabits a second is provided. Till 2020, 50% of citizens of European Union should have the connection to wideband which is higher than 100 megabits per second. The next task, by the end of 2015, to remove roaming so that roaming and national tariffs are equal. The next task, 50% of the population should and have to buy online. And the 5th task is 50% of citizens have to use e-government services. That is by the end of 2015. We are far away from that, and we would like to see how our state, how business, and how population develops, and how they look at this agenda of European Union, how we can apply it to us, what we lack and what we need to do. The next slide. Here are the stakeholders who work in this market and who are interested in development of telecommunications and technologies. The state, TV, telecom services providers, IT development and services. All of them are present here. My question is, Dmitry, the question is to you. How do you see the reform of Ukraine and the strategy 2020 and the role of broadband in these reforms? Where's the place of that? Good afternoon. First of all, I wouldn't be so critical. Of course, we can always be super critical, and we can quote, we could say we're the last ones in Europe, but the delay with the tender on 3G was 4 months delay. Theoretically, the tender was to finish on the 30th of October. That was the initiative of the president, but unfortunately, there were big bureaucratic obstacles to that. But nevertheless, this happened. And I believe that with the background of a difficult economic situation, with the background of the war with Russia, resistance and the huge number of service providers in the market. Nevertheless, the 3G tender happened. We raised a little more than $300 million for 3 brands. In average, one band is 100 million. In the U.S., they raised 49 billion for 1,500 bands, and the minimum is 1.5 million per band. That is the issue of attracting investments to the state, because all the providers will be operating and they are investing into the infrastructure. Introducing 3G will allow to attract additional resources into the economy. When we see the GDP growth, the consequences of introducing 3G are huge. The speculations that lasted all that time, why not 3G, why not 4G? But someone wrote in a coalition agreement 5G. 5G, I took a report. During Davos, I had a meeting with the CEO of Ericsson. That was quite an interesting discussion, because there's the statistical information forecast till 2020, what technology will prevail. And there's the Central and Eastern Europe, and the forecast of Ericsson, it's not mine, is 70% of 3G, and only little less than 28 will be LTE of 4G. We're talking about Eastern Europe. The situation in Western Europe will be different, because the dynamic of the market is different. When we are talking about Asia and Northern America, we will also see different situation depending on the development. 5G is tested by Southern Korea, because that technology is promoted by Samsung, and some countries are considering the idea of testing. There are certain limitations related to 4G. The operator will tell that I was so many times writing, why not 4G? If today's bureaucracy delayed the tender for 4 months, and that is the tender for 3G, but if we were to start the process on 4G, we would have been waiting a lot, because we had to do refarming, separate the frequencies from technologies. Then the operators, the service providers, had to return the frequencies. Then the new tender had to be launched, and then that would have expanded the market. Other players would come. But I would like to explain another myth. 3G is additional service. That is not any special separate service which could be launched by independent operator. The operators are here, and they can confirm that the launch of 3G without voice, I believe no one did it. So first we need to have voice, then 3G is additional service. I'm sorry for explaining all these details, because very often people are not talking about that, and these are the elements based on which the decisions are made, because we have to ensure fast internet and fast communication for Ukrainian business and citizens, and this had to be done in a short period of time. And the RPR group started working on this issue in March, I believe, in May. We had first meetings in May, and we were discussing what would be the best scenario. There were operators present, the representatives of IT sector of the state, and that is when we developed quite a detailed plan of how this should be implemented. I would like to thank most of those people who were there, and we understood clearly how to achieve result, not just to talk about, to write something, but to achieve result, because the final result We haven't achieved the final result. The final result will be launched 3G, because we've done everything now to give it all to business. Now the money is to be paid to the state budget. That's important, and then we'll see the service which will be launched. The service has to be launched, and then it will be expanded all over Ukraine. As to digital agenda of the state, definitely, I'm surprised looking at this map when we said that there was no digital agenda in Ukraine. All my time I was working in IT sector, I've seen 6 or 7 digital strategies of the development of Ukrainian society. They were adopted, they were drafted, we had white paper, yellow paper, we had so many papers. But the question is not about how many round tables we had, but it's about how many services were launched. We were discussing e-governance for so many times. And it's not about what is the definition of e-governance, but it's about how many services are launched, how many electronic requests are made by the citizens, what's the length of the request. There are certain indicators which show whether we have e-governance or not. And that's what we need to be talking about. But to write another digital strategy, I believe, would be just a waste of time and efforts. And once we are talking about the strategy 2020, then the broadband should be like 25 subscribers per 100 subscribers should have broadband. Now we have 8. We need to triple that figure. And we have a big country. This is not a small country where the coverage could be achieved by small efforts. We have some regions which are quite distant, and that influences the broadband development.
I believe that during discussion we will have we'll touch this issue many times, but the most important we had attend. Very thankful to all who helped to do it. It was not easy, and I would like to thank all and NKRZ for transparent work and open work. I'm very thankful to the President who supported this initiative and who initiated it, and who put a lot of efforts into this, because there were meetings in Davos with organizations that are interested in investment in Ukraine. With Turkcell, we had a meeting, and with all the operators, we had a discussion with them, what kind of investments could come to Ukraine and could come together with the 3G. I congratulate 3G. We have enough of professionals who can introduce services, and we have a critical mass in the ministries, not in all the agencies, but in the ministries, yes. In the majority of the ministries, they started to work on introduction of e-governance. There is an initiative of Digital Ukraine, and there are 2 draft laws and in the parliament, and they will allow to work with open data of citizens, and so we move. We would like her to move faster, and but we would like to move. Thank you very much, Dmitry. We have your opinion. Let's come back to the issue: how important it is to have a national strategy, and what all the players of the market think about that. And I would like to give the floor to Petro Chernyshov. Petro, you have the opinion of Dmitry. He believes that a digital agenda, we have it, and we know where we move. So what's the mission of Kyivstar in the development of digital agenda? We have it, and also where 3G is in that mission, which you got together with the rest of the operators. I will try to answer your questions, and but what I want to say at the beginning, Ukraine, unfortunately, is the country where those who are in power, they speak too much, because I knew many many governments before, many deputies. As soon as you approach them, the first word they say reforms, and then there is an interesting story about reforms. But what Dmitry told us about reforms, we can do. But the auction of 3G, it's a real example of a reform, because Ukraine is famous for reforms they are talking about, but nobody has them. That's a big problem with the country. I'm very happy that finally we have positive examples. Now, about the auction, we are very happy, and we join what was told. We thank the regulator. Believe me, and there was a big battle to have this tender transparent, for this to be a real tender. And probably you, journalists, if you were present yesterday, and we operators were surprised that yesterday the tender, everything was tip-top, and there was an intrigue also during a real auction. It's wonderful because there should be a surprise always in an auction, and everybody got the same band. The country received a lot of money, and which are needed for the country in our task. Not only like Kyivstar, but all the three operators who to build that platform on which business in this country will build what is called, they will create digital services, because we wanted to give them a very good, reliable platform. It's clear that we'll put some of our services on that platform. We have very interesting plans to mobile finances and mobile commerce, and we'll try to do that. But we are just one operator, Kyivstar, even BIGs, etc. But I believe that digital agenda in Ukraine will not work in Ukraine until we have thousands on that small enterprises, and some will write a code to sell it as a platform, and some others they will use those results, and they will connect on that platform that will be structure on our 3G. And they will build a business, and they will interact with consumers. And if it doesn't work like in the US, Singapore, and Europe, etc., it will not work. Why am I optimistic about this? Because I see that in Ukraine we have really a lot of active, small, not only small, IT companies, and they write a lot. And they are ready, and their mouth is watering around 3G, and they will write services, and they will make money on that, and will be able to sell services, and all the clients will be happy, because a happy client, that's what we want. Thank you. Thank you very much, Petro. I'll give the floor to Erdal Yayla. Mr. Yayla?
The 3G tender, which happened yesterday. Are you happy with the results that you purchased I would say the most expensive license out of 3 available? And how do you see the 3G development in the digital agenda? Probably you have a lot of experience from Turkish market, and can share with us as well your view how the Turkish market been developed in terms of digital agenda too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, good afternoon. I will answer to your first question actually in that way. I think we bought the most valuable lot in the tender. So, yeah, it is the most expensive in your view, but we treated like we bought the most valuable lot. Let me repeat it one more time. Because in terms of tender, we are really happy. Yesterday it was, I think, very nicely managed, organized process. And it was really transparent. And everything was done in line with the rules, regulations, let's say. We are really happy to be the part of that process. Yesterday tender.
I'll ask, do you need translation? Нужен перевод?
Please.
Добрый день. То есть мы очень счастливы присутствовать здесь, и мы очень счастливы, как прошел вчера.
We're happy to be here, and we are happy
Well, this is I think, like all the participants, I mean, already named it, like Mr. Shymkiv also mentioned. We think that, okay, this was very critical step for the country, for the technological evolution, and it's, I think, the part of the definite digital agenda of any country, 3G. That's a fact. Okay, we had some delays in Ukraine. We know this. We were aware about that, all delays. But I think that's a really great success. I think that this, in a short period of time, that tender has been held, and the 3G licenses have been, let's say, tendered and provided to operators. I think that's a milestone, let's say, stage for the country in terms of all technological development and, let's say, evolution. Because 3G means, you know, better service quality, better data speed, better life standard, actually. That's the key word, in my opinion. Because nowadays, everyone knows that, I mean, how the data is critical for all people, for all citizens of any country, namely in Ukraine, how it is so critical to reach the data timely, effectively, and right on the time. I mean, you're my friends, I mean, you understand better than I do, I think, you know, right data at the right time and accessing it. So this technology actually provides our customers, subscribers that ability to reach the data as soon as it is required and with the highest speed. And as a result, we know that it is proven fact by many countries, wherever it is implemented, this improves the life standards of people. That's why, let me sum up it like that, I mean, we are really happy to get the, let's say, one of the chance to be able to launch this new technology in the country as soon as possible. This is, as I mentioned, really very critical stage. And one more time I want to emphasize, because there were so many publications around that which we were also following from the social media, from all web sources, that we bought the most expensive. I'm calling it like that, we bought the most valuable license. And the first one I want to emphasize, and really we are proud of this, one more time I want to tell, we got the first one. I think that's also was very important for our, let's say, company as well as a target, and we achieved it as well. As an answer to your second question, in general, yes, 3G is a real, as I mentioned, part of the, let's say, digital agenda. Because one of the key, let's say, element of the digital agenda is the, you know, data, as we mentioned, so, and speed. Let's say 2G, 3G, even from the terminology point of view, it's very obvious that 3G is much more faster than 2G. And that's why going, you know, with the roadmap of any digital agenda, that was a very critical step. And I believe it is achieved. And I think now our target should be, by all the operators, actually should be that we need to launch this technology as soon as possible. As soon as possible in the shortest time. Definitely there are, again, regulatory requirements. And there are certain processes to be done. We will be following up all that processes very closely. We need to follow up by all operators, I think. And we need to achieve the, you know, there is a conversion topic. There are also some other rules which should be followed up. And I hope that this process will be really smooth and will be very short. And it will help us, again, to bring this, let's say, new data speed to the country, to the citizens as soon as possible. And which will, again, play a key role for the digital agenda of the country. In terms of Turkish experience, what I can tell, you know, one of the shareholder of actually live trademark company, Asterit, is Turkcell. And Turkcell has the 3G technology starting from, let's say, almost 2009. And nowadays, in Turkey, the new technologies, you know, discussed, which is 4G. So they are passing also the same, through the same, let's say, stages. Okay. Taking into account this experience as well, we believe that there is a certain delay in the technological, let's say, development in the deployment in the country, in Ukraine. However, again, this is in our hand because there are really so many positive changes happening, and in terms of technology, that's why these, let's say, additional technology will speed up the process, in my opinion, and will help us to close this gap, in my understanding, in our understanding, actually. That's why I am emphasizing one more time. Now our kind request, let's say, expectation from the all involved parties will be to smooth the process and to let the process go on in the fastest, let's say, way, to let each operator actually to launch the technology as soon as possible.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your comments. And сейчас господин Приживальский.
Now, Mr. Przewalski, Oleg Petrovich, once you were Minister of Communication, if I'm not wrong, in 1992-1995, and also you were Deputy Minister of Ministry of Transportation in 2008. How you saw the strategy of development of telecom at that time? What has changed since that time? Where should we move? Dear colleagues, dear friends, if to look at 90s, there was a different situation, circumstances, and we have completely different strategies and tasks. And let's remember, at the time when Ukraine became independent, we didn't have our international communication station. We had to operate only through Moscow. We had no mobile. We didn't have digital technologies. That's why our task was, at that time, to develop our international station, communication station as soon as possible. And for the first year of independence, and for the second one, we launched mobile communication. We started to introduce digital technologies. And now that period, we cannot, this time cannot be compared with the previous. The only thing is we didn't have dollars, and we don't have dollars now. That's the only comparison I can draw. So there is something in common. And first of all, I would like to congratulate all of you that finally we had a very transparent tender. Thankful to the government. And in the history of Ukraine, it's the second tender, the second competition. At the beginning, 10 years ago, in 2004, there was a slide, and when Wi-Fi technologies were brought to WiMAX, and that was the first transparent tender. This is the second one. So 10 years it took us to do it, and to have it transparent and correctly. And these 10 years, there were some things in the country which did not allow us to have more modern technologies. I can mention about that. What is our strategy now? Of course, we'll introduce the last release. That's the only advantage when you start so late with 3G. And of course, it will be quite high speed, and our clients will see that. We, in the nearest future, we'll have a special presentation for you, for journalists, and you will see advantages of new standards, and we can do that because now we have a permission from the National Commission on Regulation of Communication, and we'll show how that works. Unfortunately, broadly and services, we can do that not earlier than half a year. In half a year, because we can get a license, we'll get a license in 2-3 months, not before that, because during 2 months with the Ministry of Defense, if they have to do their job, we needed to pay, and then we need to enter into the contract, and then we'll have a license. Then we'll get a permission to use basic stations, and there will be lots of them, because not only us, but all our competitors, partners, they will do that. And honestly, I'm afraid how would it can develop such a big flow of documents, because only us this year. We will send them several thousands of such documents, and Kyivstar and Erdal will do the same, and it will be difficult for them. The second problem, the second challenge is currency. We have some currency, but when we are paid for some services abroad, we sell some of that currency here, and we keep some. Of course, for us to develop this standard, we need lots of hard currency. Will the National Bank provide that to us? That can be one more hindrance. And the other restriction is conversion. Under the condition of the tender, in 18 months, we need to launch mobile communication, all the regional centers. Hard job, but technologically, we could do that. Technologically, we can do that, but the Ministry of Defense will have to do the conversion only in 4 years. That's why some regional centers, regional we will not reach some regional capitals, and it's not our fault that we will not cover them. So the struggle is not over. We need to work. We need to work hard. What's after this? Afterwards, we need to introduce the networks of the fourth generation. We need to do that because there is a demand, and in big cities, we are ready. In a year, we'll be ready in a year. If all of us we unite and if we work together with the government, we will do everything possible to create legislation. In a year, I believe it can be done. Of course, we'll introduce 3G, voice, and data transfer. And then we'll switch, we'll give our traffic to 3G, and we'll move our traffic to the, and then other frequencies, 1080, they will 1008 they will use for voice, and then 2.5 gigahertz is not available. Digital dividend is not accessible, and that's the task of for our society and for the government to do everything to free that. The previous corrupted structures in Ankara, so they did in such a way they handed out to those structures when they are waiting that we will buy them for big money. And I believe that there is economic methods how to create order here in with radio frequencies. Here's an example. Today, the first investment society owns neighboring frequencies where we'll introduce 3G generation UMTS. They introduce CDMA technology that is also digital communication technology. We MTS companies stand in GSM standard in CDMA in 450 megahertz. We paid for megahertz 20,000 hryvnia for frequencies, and that company which is neighboring, they use the same technology CDMA, and we don't give voice, so we only transfer data, and they paid 20 hryvnia for 1 megahertz. Is it correct? Is it fair? No. I believe that all the frequencies, those frequencies which the decision of ITU should be, and they should introduce for mobile communication. They should pay. All should pay according to the tariffs, like for mobile communication operators. And those who wait for us to buy them, maybe they will think twice. Maybe they should give back those frequencies to the state. That's an economic lever we can use. And if we don't do that, and then the future, like Elena mentioned on those charts, we will not have that future because. We have some future. We have some prospects for the coming 2-3 years. We always have prospects. It's not an issue for this roundtable, but this is the aspects. How can we develop it? We don't have a frequency resource. Thank you very much for such a broad story. Explanation. I would like to ask representatives of IT industry. Ilya, 3G is almost, or very soon it will be launched. And Mr. Yayla and MTS and Kyivstar all say, just wait for 6 months and we'll do everything. What IT industry needs? What you need? Will you be happy that 3G will be in the regional centers very soon? What is missing? Good.
Thank you, Lena, for inviting me. I really feel embarrassed next to such respected people. I'm not the representative of ITU sector. I'm one of them. It's wrong to consider that I'm an expert. I, in 2 minutes, will tell you why I am here. Before that, I will answer the question. I will tell why I am here. This will be a very brief but beautiful story. 3G is like road. Can you imagine a country without roads? We have cities, we have these beautiful cars in the cities, but between the cities there are no roads. Even inside there are no roads. As Kievites, we understand that because we have so many cars just parked on the pavements, and the pedestrians have no roads. That is what was happening in mobile internet, because the main thing what 3G provides to IT sector, because we believe IT sector is not a sector, but it's IT as a horizontal for all the sectors of economy. Just imagine that somehow we don't have roads, and that is how we live. We don't have a Dropbox, we don't have an Evernote, we cannot use mail, we cannot write anything to anyone. We don't have so many projects which we should have, because Ukraine and many other sectors in IT sector shows amazing results, much bigger than in the countries which are next to us. That is despite, but not thanks to, we don't have 3G, but on the other hand, I see that many startups which would like and have to use 3G or 4G, they leave. And the reason why they do it, one of the reasons is the absence of 3G. Couple of startups. There's a startup that is quite successful, Swollen, and first they were trying to produce to make their product here. Then in the result they left, and there are many stories like that. So when we are saying which service is starting from booking service, starting from touristic sector, entertainment, social things, messaging, and other things. Viber, which is impossible to use here walking along the street. We need 3G everywhere. That gives the business mobility, and that allows business to understand what's happening with the business right now. It is wrong to believe that it will immediately bring capital and we will see many startups, because it's like we have nothing and we will have 3G and things will change drastically. But that is still a big step forward comparing it to government. We need the government for the government, but 3G is e-government for the people, for the society. Now I will tell why I'm here, and I'm sorry that I will take a lot of time, just a couple of minutes, but that's an interesting story. In the beginning of May last year, I came to RPR. Then they were like hooligans. They did not receive any money, and it was headed by Anna Gabko, Sveta Zalishuk, Oleg Matsik. And I offered them, I requested, let us try to address the 3G problem in the country. I explained what 3G is. It was in Dmytro Shymkiv's office. He was at that time CEO of Microsoft, and it was happening with Dmitry. And one of the first ones, when RPR decided to support my initiative, one of the first persons I invited into the group was Dmitry. So, and the story was long. There were we got six representatives of telecom industry: Alexei Fedienko, Tatiana Popova, Elena Minich. And we started discussing how we will be able to launch the process. And then, thanks to all our common efforts, first of all, thanks to Dmitry's efforts, who started working in the presidential administration, the presidential decree was issued. And we believe that this is when we will start everything. But then we started fighting with Yatsenyuk, with the cabinet of ministers. Then we put the no telephone booth in front of the cabinet of ministers. And the result, we achieved it. Despite everything, despite the fact that we believe the person is a small person, what can the person decide? Many people think that many decisions are made in the lobbies and the activists can do nothing. I would like to read a short message text. The story about 3G is not about 3G, but we, small people, we managed to do that. We broke the system, we achieved the results. First, we started fighting corruption, and then we forced the authorities to take us seriously. We succeeded, and I see no reason why others cannot succeed. Don't be afraid. Thank you, Ilya. Applause.
Well, the group headed by you with Dmitry, Sasha, Tatiana, I helped a little bit also, and we are very happy with these results. Colleagues, so now we heard from all participants of the market the full opinion. Dmytro Shymkiv, Ukraine 2020, 25% of CBD for 100 people. That's the goal for by up to 2020. Mr. Chernyshov told that they launch a platform for business and services, and 3G is the first break in that platform. Astelit announces that they would like to launch it as soon as possible, and there are some problems, and they want us to help them to fight against those problems. And MTS outlined key points that will be an obstacle that will influence on speed, but also he told that the next goal is 4G, and it will happen very soon. It's the next step. Now let's look. All this infrastructure is developing, everything is fine, wonderful, and nevertheless, we have such a task to do to make all the sources for the population transparent as possible, as accessible as possible. And Ukraine, by e-governance, has place 87, and Estonia on 15, Russia 27, Georgia 56. So we're far away, according to all the. We are far away from leading countries. Secondly, in the digital agenda, e-governance and the services for people, digital sources, they have very high place. That's the third priority. The first one is the development of infrastructure. It is what is done by our operators on the market. The priority 2 in all the countries that education and access to online education, and priority 3, digital services for population. So, Jaanika, the question is to you. What's your vision of position of the third point? Is it correct for Ukraine, and what is necessary for Russia to come closer to those 50% of access of all the population to these services? And Dmitry promised only 25% that only 25% will have access. Thank you very much. I told a couple of weeks ago that we don't have some fundamental principles for e-governance development. So I would like to comment it. I would like to comment some digital agenda is very important. That is a strategy where we want to go, how soon, how quick, and how in business we have a KPI. We measure what we can. So we need to have goals. For example, we don't have e-governance, e-services. We would like in 2020 such a number of services to be provided. What should be done for that? Should we introduce new technologies? Yes. Should we optimize the process and to make them digital? Yes. But it's important to have goals, to have objectives, and to know the road to those objectives. What do we measure? How we move? What we get, and the result. So, digital agenda is very important, and EU decided that digital agenda is that document which can be developed by country. And as an example, the majority of European countries, they developed that document. But this is only one side of the story. As a journalist, that's very general. I want to hear something practical. 3G is just a mediator in a good sense. It's just a mediator for IT to develop and to develop applications, but even that access of population and business to internet and to different services, e-services that we don't have. So we don't have a chance to do what we do on paper. We cannot do it electronically, ideally through in 5-10 years, and it depends how quick we run, and we need to do everything with what we do on paper. We should do that in internet. Using any gadget, e-services, and with there are some priority services that we should launch, and there are some other services that can be launched right now. And e-governance, together Ministry of Economy, we have our role. We developed the general plan how to launch, first of all, how to develop a strategy, state strategy of e-government and standards and legislation, what is needed. And thirdly, we will try and we will support the ministry and for them to provide e-services, but it's not one ministry. Every ministry must do that. They should have not just e-forms in internet. They need to change the process. They need to optimize process. Then that makes no sense to digitalize chaos. And it's not that easy that there is a web page and we have an e-service. We need to change fundamentally the structure of communication between public servants and people. We begin that we develop a strategy, but the strategy, I agree, is not a goal. The goal is to launch as many services as possible. There's a Ministry of Interior and Ecology, and with them we will introduce some priority services on the level of local self-governance, which is ready, and on the level of the national government. And so there will be, and there must be good news as to services that are launched when there are different books, white, black, whatever book. It's great, but we need to have results for people and for business. The question is, what can they do through internet? We need to have access. It means even if we introduce e-services, but if people don't have access, it's not that bad. It's not a big difference. If people have no access, they cannot use services. Nobody knows how to use them. So these things are connected. We cannot speak about these services. There is no access to internet, but if there is access, we need to develop the usage of those services.
Thank you, Jaanika, for summing up this understanding from the point of view of the services. But looking back at the picture, the question will be how quickly the state will develop all the regulations to develop the operators, how quickly the operators will create their networks and provide access. Then the services will be developing with the same speed and IT development. Ivan Zlochevskyi has joined us. Ivan, thank you for finding time in your schedule We discussed the issue of strategy, of digital agenda. What's next after 3G? 3G, as Jaanika said, is an intermediary for access, but it's a small intermediary. The question to you, how quickly will you be moving forward? What will be your next step, and when will we have 4G? Also, a question to Dima, how quickly we will be able to develop legislation to make 4G possible. I will say, first of all, I've heard what Yanina said, that 3G is an intermediary in a good sense of the word. That's important because in our case, we need the positive contribution and the assessment of the positive contribution of the operators. There's a different rhetoric that we are in the way. We would like to change that, and 3G is the best argument because it changes social ties in the society. The discussion is going on. And it's been going on for several months already. Why not 4G but 3G? I would like to share your experience and to say that in Ukraine this will be the same. The experience of users and the feeling of using the new product, the difference between 3G and 2G is much, much bigger than between 3G and 4G. And that is why there's no sense to leap forward without understanding what is the contribution of mobile internet, what it gives to just every citizen. It is true, talking about economy, small business, entertainment, everything that surrounds a modern person. And I believe till we as operators do not provide all the opportunities of 3G to the citizens, to people who now have a phone. Instead, a person will have a smartphone, and the difference should be felt. I don't think it's so important to talk about quick 4G till 3G becomes a massive market. And our positive investment hopes are related to 3G. We have always been saying that maybe now it's not the best time from the economic point of view to invest, but we understand we are ready to invest, and we understand that in the future this will give a big growth of the incomes of the operator. And my question is to operators, how quickly will we have 3G on the roads? And the question number two, there's such a village, Dmytro, which is 25 kilometers away from Kyiv. There's MTS tower, but Kyivstar is not there. Do you live there? Can you agree between themselves, between yourselves, and put both Kyivstar, Astelit, and MTS on this tower so that there's the whole coverage by Kyivstar and 3G? Peter will tell you, but I believe the answers are universals. Practical, very easy. Can you come to an agreement? It's no problem for us. We participate in this program of exchange. We have so many common facilities, but new construction and saving costs for construction and operation of joint infrastructure, that's a result of very serious change in legislation and regulations. We have no right to do many things. We would like to do things. And now we do hope that we will move forward now. But in general, the progress that we have now, we are just working together on about 100 facilities. But now talking about roads, what's a road from the point of view of mobile phone users? Few people are talking while driving. You have to follow the road, but the network there means that this road will be secure. And that means that for the operator, not a single road will be profitable, with the exception of Kyiv-Borispol. You should understand that for the operator, there's a task that we will start covering highways when the profitability of the whole network will be ensured in some other places. But it's not just based on patriotism and the interests of the state. We are private companies, and we have to ensure return on capital. But if we don't pay attention to that, we can run forward a lot. I would like to give the floor to Dmitry. No one needs Zvinkova village now. We'll be back. We'll discuss it later.
I understand that Elena is using her position here, and they're trying to get the best communication line. I live in Vyshgorod. I don't live in Zinkova. Ivan is correct, and in such a situation, all three mobile operators are in such a condition. Somebody has a better coverage in a village, and somebody doesn't. Ivan is correct. If legislation of the country was more deregulated, we would do that from the very beginning. But now we share with our operators, 10% of towers. It's a few. It's not correct. And the experience of other countries shows that this is a waste of money when operators all operators are trying to build their towers. So this is the problem of our legislation. That's why we ask Dmytro. He's the only representative of the government, and we have no one to ask. Okay, she is an advisor. And we ask, please, take from our back those who are trying who are an obstacle, and change some legislation that don't allow to developed some directions, like sharing the towers, and there are many other things that we cannot develop. And just get rid of those suckers from our backs. Thank you very much for your question. Because there is the same approach, by the way, and that's a trend when services, other companies maintain towers, not operators. There is such a trend, for example, in the US, and that allowed to speed up the development of technologies. And the biggest trend is in Africa. It may surprise you, because that allows to maintain infrastructure in faraway districts, and the operator is responsible for communication and for additional services. And maintenance companies for towers, they provide the highest quality. They are responsible for the quality and functioning of the infrastructure. I'm sure that such directional cooperation should develop. And there is interest of Ukraine from international investors in that direction. I cannot tell you more, it will be not correct. But again, we speak about interest of international investors to invest in Ukraine despite a difficult economic situation and a security situation. That's why I support it. Time will show. And considering how national regulator is working at present, we see that. And one important thing I would like to underline. During the tender, 3G tender, all three operators received licenses. They purchased the licenses. It means that we have competition, and it's wonderful. But the most important is that we get competition on the market. It will not be just one operator who unclearly how and under which conditions gets a license and which he doesn't develop. But these are three aggressive operators. They will fight for us, for consumers, and they will not wait for 6 months. But they will speed up launching their services to the population, because we and they always fight for clients. They compete for clients, and we will always vote with our legs, and we will move to those operators who introduce 3G communication before others. As to the roads, business is business, and we use digital communication not on the roads mostly, but in the office, at home, when we communicate, and in cities, of course, the infrastructure should develop. By the way, this is the issue, the question to the Ministry of Infrastructure, because they could suggest to operators an interesting model, and together with built-in roads and commercial roads, they could. We need to find synergy when business will have interest to the development of such programs and projects. There was a question about 4G. I will repeat myself. Of course, if to look at present, or in 2014 LTE, if we speak about a global, it was in 30% in the world had it, and for 3G, 70% had 3G. So 3G by 2020 will be 90% of mobile population. Those who use mobile communication, they have 3G, and 4G, 70% will have 4G. And I agree with Zlochevskyi, he was one of the people who helped during the first meeting in RPR to have a very good quality of discussion with the operator. I am very thankful to him, because we had to come down operators to find a consensus on the road to 3G, and to find the best model. Of course, for us to introduce 4G, we need operators should launch 3G first of all. They should get profit. Then Ukraine will get communication, and will get taxes, and that will allow to initiate new things and to work for the next generation. But believe me, that at present, even 4G, we have a lot of questions to 4G, like in compliance of terminals and compatibility of technologies from country to country. So one has LTE, and the other country, LTE in one country can be not compatible with LTE with other countries, and there's a problem with the terminals. And if we speak about 3G and 4G, the majority of phones we use as smartphones in Ukraine, they are ready for 3G. You don't need anything. But if we speak about 4G, those terminals will be more expensive. And when we launch expensive service, which requires expensive phones, we put limits on the population as to how they can use technologies. So we should consider different elements. It doesn't mean that we don't look at 4G. No, we do, and we analyze the process. We should understand also that operators they will spend lots of money they will invest a lot of infrastructure. But if we can launch base station also, that will be common for them, that will speed up technologies. Thank you very much, Dmitry. I would like, in the end, we will have time for 2 questions only, but I would like to ask a question. Operators, how many jobs will be created by the end of this year?
About that site sharing, to elaborate on that, because this is already actually a common practice between the operators, and we see a really good effective approach here. And I would like to emphasize one more time that, for example, We have another subsidiary in Ukraine, Ukur Tower, which is working, let's say, mainly in tower business, and they are building towers, which I know, let's say, for 3 operators, and there are commonly shared towers as well, even in our current, let's say, portfolios of the 3 operators. And also there are, again, such, I think, nice projects like Kiev Metro is one of them, which is, again, the common project of the operators. And also so many, I can tell that, let's say, these shopping malls, which, you are visiting every weekend, every day. So they're also mostly covered by the 3 operators by common investment, mostly, let's say. So these are all good examples, but I totally agree with the all comments. I think this should be the maybe, let's say, it might be extended with certain understanding between the operators and the business portfolio. But also there is a business practice behind it, and everyone has a private entity. That's why these are all return investment calculations. So I think as much as it is possible, I think all operators are trying to implement such solutions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Yayla. Actually, the business practice in many European countries that 3 operators or 2 operators even building one network for 3G and having one expenses for the operation and maintenance. Yeah, so я вернусь к своему последнему.
Back to my question about 3 operators. To each of one of you, how many jobs till the end of the year you are planning to provide additionally, based on introducing 3G, based on launching new services? Who's ready to answer, Ivan? Okay. The stage of building network by operators is done in the according to the ratio 20 by 80. 20 are own employees and 80 are the personnel of the contractors who are constructing the facilities. 20% participate in receiving, in test operation, in launch and adjustment. We do have these people, and they will not lose their jobs. But the 80% who will get contracts or will get some temporary jobs, they will get them, and that is the contribution into GDP that construction of 3G brings to the country. For how long will it be temporary job? For 2-3 years? There's open data about the numbers of companies. In MTS-Ukraine, we have 3,500 employees. Talking about technical direction, all the technicians, it's approximately 550 people all over the country. Thank you, Ivan. Peter, the same. Mr. Yayla, the same.
Already optimized enough structure to handle the 3G project as well.
Basically, it's going to be thousands of working places, I would say. Couple of thousands.
I have a brief question to all 3 operators, and I would thank if you provide practical answer. There's a thing which is called MPNA. We now, thanks to common efforts, we have these 3G licenses, and when will MNP service be introduced, when the number could be transferred from one operator to another one? Thank you. Ilya, I believe I can answer this question because according to the regulation plan, it's planned for the end of this year. Can I hear the operators? They're not introducing that. I believe that it is important to understand that this is introducing NMP is an issue. It's a question to the regulator. I will not comment on what is regulator doing. There's an agenda of deregulation. NMP is part of that. It's a very complicated question. If Ilya believes that that is our step forward towards the society, maybe the society should make a step forward to us and pay not 36 hryvnias for a month of communication, but a little more. NMP is quite expensive thing. We need to have a very serious IT system which will be managing it. Ilya wants a contract. Okay. but NMP is a very serious thing. It has a serious financial base. And now, if we say that we now want NMP, but does the society really need it? Maybe one will help. I will add a little bit. I will offer a very simple question. About 85% of subscribers do not have contracts with operators. That means that when this subscriber moves to another network, if there are any disputes with the previous operator, the operator which lets this subscriber go has no ability to charge money if the person is in roaming, not to re-register some services paid on free of charge services, and we are for everyone to be healthy and rich, but for that we need to make several steps. MNP is important for us as a way to make relations between operator and the subscriber based on the contractual basis. IT infrastructure which is required, I agree with Peter with that, which is required for MNP. Why it's so expensive? The experience of introducing MNP in all neighboring markets shows that what the customers or subscribers are used to stops working, and we need to get ready for that. For example, SMS doesn't go. The connection when you call happens not in 3 seconds but in 30 seconds, and people are complaining because they're used to other things. But they didn't have such problems in some other place. But who managed to do that? If you have to resolve it free of charge, that means you will not resolve it. If you resolve it for money, then you have to increase the tariffs. And that's what Peter said. And it's not just like signing the decree and everything works in 2 months. For a year and a half, everyone, all are to work together. There should be one single administrator who will understand what to do with all the phone calls, not like it was last time. If within a year and a half there's a lot of work done, then the subjects of the market will do everything needed. But there will be no decision like that. We've heard it. What about Astelit, Mr. Yayla?
The mobile number portability, I think this is a really right question and the right time. Thank you very much, Mr. Ilya, for that question as well. Because this is actually one of the things which I was mentioning in my initial speech, which we are expecting from the authority. The authority is not here, but like Mr. Shymkiv mentioned, I think there is a concentration about this topic. And we really believe that mobile number portability, MNP, is very key, again, breakthrough actually event or let's say solution for Ukrainian telecommunication market. And it should be implemented again with the right rules in the shortest time in our understanding. And we are in good communication, I think, with all that committees which is established, which is working on that rule implementation. And we are opt for, I can tell that, for free, friendly, fast MMP for all Ukrainian subscribers, because everyone has the freedom right and everyone has the, let's say, right to use the services wherever they want, which operator they want. And there shouldn't be any limitation, there shouldn't be any blockage in terms of that number portability. This is our position.
Yeah, thank you very much. Спасибо большое. Я думаю, что абоненты как раз...
Thank you. I believe that the subscribers, they do share your opinion, because based on who will be constructing better 3G, they will go there. They will be voting by their feet. Thank you, dear participants of the round table. I believe, how much time do we have for questions? 2 questions then. Who will be the first one?
Я так розумію, що ви поправте мене, Дмитре, або і
I understand, correct me if I'm wrong. The biggest problem for the soonest introduction of 3G is such a thing as bureaucracy and processes. Operators will do it sooner than 6 months if they receive necessary documents. Compatibility, they will have to work on that. Dmytro, this is the question to you because you are the only one who represents the government. Maybe it's a question for RPI. You have to thank those bureaucrats for them to work quicker. I don't love such words like shake bureaucrats. Yeah, there are some people you have to really shake to motivate them. But the regulator understands that clearly that the technology should be introduced, and there is a clear understanding that there are some bureaucratic processes and they should be sped up, and they will be changed. Will not change technical agenda quickly. Technically, it takes time. But I'm not sure that all of us are interested for the technology to get introduced as soon as possible. And as far as I know, operators and the regulator have a very good dialogue, and they understand that things should move quick. So that's why I'm sure that there will be no delays. A question to operators, and but from the point of view of clients, subscribers, how soon we can get a 3G internet, and how accessible it will be like a service? Will it be more expensive than the internet we use now, or will it be accessible for just common people? Thank you. Operators, the floor is yours. You can look on our neighbors on the market, and prices for broadband and wire and wireless, and look at the dynamic. It's quite obvious that when there will be new technological stage like 3G or 4G, broadband wireless will not be as popular as wireless, because for the same money you get just quite a different mobility. The speed, which is in 3G, it will depend on some frequency limitations we will have. But if we speak about if we look at our neighboring countries, we understand that centers, you will have a 20-25 megabit in downtown, in big cities. Not all will have that, but centers in big cities that allows users in the network to have such speed. It's not a guarantee from the operator, but 20-25 megabit, if you use it at home, it's enough for you to use TV wireless. This comparison of 3G with 2G, so it's quite a different dimension, quite a different age of digital technologies. Life is responsible for prices, for tariffs.
I think in terms of speed, okay, there are worldwide real averages, so it will not be minimum than 2 megabit definitely. And I think, like we all mentioned during the meeting, 3G means, accessing the data. So the speed will be, let's say, really enough to handle all your needs, through the internet when you're on the street, when you're walking, when you're at home. So this will be the actual average speed, which I mentioned previously, not less than 2 megabit. There are averages like 10 megabit per second as well. So these are the averages, and I think it will be enough, let's say, to cover all the subscriber needs.
What about price?
Pricing, yeah, I heard that we are responsible for all prices. I think I heard the comment. I think this is the market, let's say, definition, let's say. Mr. Peter was also mentioning about prices as well, but we think that, okay, first of all, this is a new technology, and the current market prices, like Mr. Chernyshov was mentioning, society should do something for us. No, I will not tell in that way, but this is really important technology, and it might be understood. We have the business plan. We are making investments. Definitely our biggest task as well to let this technology to be used by the Ukrainian people, citizens. That's why it will be affordable and it will be usable.
Я думаю, Дима хочет прокомментировать, что
Я просто вот вы щойно
You see, this is a real discussion between operators. I'm very happy that all three operators have a license. They can compete now, and I'm sure that in the competition there will be the best price will come out from the competition, and the best price for consumers, for clients, and that will require some creative marketing strategy. It will demand to be creative as to the costs for the building of the networks, but consumers win from the competition. First of all, what was done in Ukraine for years, they were destroying competition, and I hear that there was a competition with voice, but in 3G there was a monopoly. Thank you. I wanted to say, as a common person, I live in the country where 3G, 4G, I lived in that country, in Estonia. And there were 4 different variants and 4 operators. I don't feel that I drive on the road and I read news and I send my email that I have 3G or 4G. There is no difference. For a common person, with 2G, that's clear, but 3 is enough for the main functions of consume, like through appliances, gadgets, etc. I would like us to be very careful when we speak about rollout and development of technologies in Estonia, when the territory is 1.2 million. That's half of Kiev. Okay, you have population 1,000,003. It's half of Kiev, but we speak about a development or rollout of technology for 45 million. So there's a different scale, different level investments and engineering investments. This is just much more complicated in terms of engineering. It's like a company for 10 people and an enterprise where we have 1,500 people. This is just a different scale. What I wanted to say. You don't feel the difference between 4G and 3G. That's what I wanted to say. I would like to thank Jaanika, because this is great. And there are different jokes, and that Estonia is teaching Ukraine about speed. Yes. One more question. First on national TV. A question is, you spoke about 6 months that will require to introduce 3G. In which cities will be the first with 3G? When will you cover all Ukraine with 3G? How long will it take? I will speak for all, because it was mentioned many times here, yesterday and today. We speak about the strategic priorities, Kyiv, because less limitations as to conversion, and secondly, and the most payable clients are here. So technically, economically, it's understandable. The same with Lviv and Odessa. There are some limitations in Kharkiv, Zaporozhye, Dnipropetrovsk, and so these are economic centers. I name them all. We'll try to cover the maximum of the population of the biggest cities, and then up to 100% will not provide the 100% to all population, and.
I hope the general staff will tell, at least the operators, it's all mysterious, but from the point of view of priorities for Kyivstar, it's village Dzvinkove. It's not just for Kyivstar, but for Astelit as well. The last question, I have a question to operators. I am the citizen, I live in the eastern part of Ukraine. I would like to understand, will there be some special policy for Donetsk and Lugansk regions, or will we, just like everyone else, be using communications? Let life start at least once.
Why not?
You're still working, by the way, in Crimea, yeah?
Crimea, no, we are not working.
You're not working anymore, yeah?
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Okay. What about the eastern regions?
East region, okay, the situation is known. In terms of question to our dear colleague, definitely it is in our plan. As long as the situation is, let's say, clear, and we will have the, let's say, as the situation allows us, let me answer in that way. I mean, definitely we will our dedication as well for that region to bring the new technology there as well. But definitely you might understand us that, I mean, we should be able to, let's say, bring the technology itself, the devices, the installation, the services. So that's the, I think, the current limitation. It could be for a while. So we will observe, then we'll make our plans accordingly.
Okay, thank you very much. Господа, большое спасибо за участие в этой конференции.
Thank you all. We've heard that the digital agenda is not far from Ukraine, and we need to get it closer. We have our own objectives, but as Jaanika said, we need to measure objectives and put new KPIs so that the services are affordable for the population and